G'day you mob, Pete here, and this is another episode of Aussie English, the number one place for anyone and everyone wanting to learn Australian English. So today I have a Goss episode for you where I sit down with my old man, my father, Ian Smissen, and we talk about the week's news, whether locally down under here in Australia or non-locally overseas in other parts of the world. Okay, and we sometimes also talk about whatever comes to mind, right? If we can think of something interesting to share with you guys related to us or Australia, we also talk about that in the Goss. So these episodes are specifically designed to try and give you content about many different topics where we're obviously speaking in English and there are multiple people having a natural and spontaneous conversation in English. So it is particularly good to improve your listening skills. In order to complement that though, I really recommend that you join the podcast membership or the academy membership at aussieenglish.com.au, where you will get access to the full transcripts of these episodes, the PDFs, the downloads, and you can also use the online PDF reader to read and listen at the same time. Okay, so if you really, really want to improve your listening skills fast, get the transcript, listen and read at the same time, keep practicing, and that is the quickest way to level up your English. Anyway, I've been rabbiting on a bit, I've been talking a bit. Let's just get into this episode, guys. Smack the bird, and let's get into it. You could go, all right, you go. You've got a puppies and kittens story, Dad, and then I have a parrot and kitten story, and then a wallabies and kitten story.
Well, mine's neither puppies or kittens, but it fits into the generic puppies and kittens.
It's neither puppies nor kittens, Dad.
No, it's neither puppies or...
it's anyway, neither nor, either or.
Either or.
You're giving my listeners and viewers bad English habits.
It is not a puppy.
Nor is it a kitten.
A kitten.
That sounds
story.
like something from what's it called? John Cleese's.
Yes.
What are they called again? Not Faulty Towers. The other thing that he did. Sounds like
Monty Python.
Monty Python. Yeah, one of those. This is not a sparrow.
That's right. Yes, it's not dead. Yes, the world record for a single animal's continuous migration
has been broken. The old record was from about 10 years ago, where a bar-tailed godwit, wading bird, largish wading bird, not the little tiny ones. That you might have to be more descriptive. What is a wading bird? It's not waiting.
Wading. W-A-D-I-N-G.
We say them the same way.
Wading in shallow water. Wading
like
or wading.
Paddling around in the water looking
waiting
for food.
for my wading birds. Paddling around in the water. So these are birds that they're continuous summer birds.
Yeah.
So
they never see winter. They never go snowboarding, skiing,
they
nothing.
Just miss all of that shit. These are Arctic birds from Alaska and the Arctic Siberia.
That's horrible, though. Arctic summers. Good God.
Yeah. All the mosquitoes and black flies. So they breed in the Arctic in their summer, and then come late summer, early autumn, they will take off from there, and they will fly down to Australia, New Zealand, and southern Australia, New Zealand, and northern Australia as well. Some of them camp in northern Australia for a while and then keep coming south, others stay there. But so they come to Australia and New Zealand for our summer, where they basically just eat.
Bit of a trek for some food.
So this bird flew, hang on. And glasses all very well.
For context, how big is this bird? If it's the size of your fist?
No. There's some of the small wading birds, literally the size of your fist or smaller, that are doing this sort of thing as well. But the bigger ones, godwits are, from the tabletop. I'm not sure we can see the tabletop on here. They'd be this sort of height, so 40 centimetres tall.
So about a foot tall, bit more.
Bit more.
Okay.
They're quite large birds.
So they could store up a bit of fat and have a bit of energy.
They are storing fat and have a bit of energy and so on. But 11,760 kilometres.
It flew.
Was the old record in one go. That is nonstop.
Wow! So it didn't even land.
Nope, not landing.
Jesus Christ!
And this
for context, that is to Perth and back, right? Maybe more, multiple times.
Perth and back to Perth.
Okay, yeah, three times the distance between Melbourne and Perth.
It is flying from Alaska to New Zealand.
Good God!
In one go.
Wow. Well, I guess there's nowhere to really stop, right?
There's a few islands along the way, but you've got to be a pretty bloody good navigator to find them. And then that was the old record. And so this one, 12,200 kilometres, they reckon is more accurate because it was 12,800 kilometres was what was recorded, but they're saying there were some rounding errors in there, so they're not claiming that one.
So that...
And
it's almost the circumference of Australia. It's about 15,000 kilometres, I think, for you, roughly.
It's almost half the circumference of the Earth.
Jesus Christ. Which is 17,000 kilometres.
So it's... Astonishing. And this is recorded because they've... excuse me, there's a large research program going into trying to work out how these birds are surviving and how they fly and where they go and so on. And so they have these tiny little solar-powered GPS trackers on them. So they know...
that aren't too heavy, that it costs too much.
It wasn't just that somebody in Alaska went, oh, there's that bird.
Yeah.
And then 11 days later, somebody in New Zealand went, oh, here it is.
Here's Bill. He's back.
And we then did a tape measure around the Earth and go, that's how far it was.
That's how we used to do it.
Yeah, it was. That was the whole bird banding scheme came around from doing that, was by saying we need to know where birds are coming and going, but all we knew was where they were sighted.
They could have just been teleporting. You never know.
They could have,
you
exactly.
Didn't see it land.
So now it's GPS tracked, so they can map it. But they have these tiny little things because clearly, if you've got a bird that's flying there, it's losing 25-30% of its body weight probably in that amount of time. You don't want to be adding extra weight to the bird.
It's a backpack, mate.
Tiny little solar-powered GPS tracker to do it. So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty... it blows my mind, especially with the smaller birds, something the size...
Well, things the size of a sparrow.
Yeah, what the hell?
Weighs 25 grams, and... that's when they get here. They probably weighed 35 or 40 grams when they left Alaska.
Yeah.
And these tiny little birds. Now, they fly down...
Are they eating on the wing? Are they eating whilst they're flying?
No, a lot of those birds, the smaller ones, are flying down the east coast of Asia. So they're going through Korea, China, down through the South China Sea.
So they're using gravity.
The Philippines. Exactly. Going from down the page on the map. This is... Have another drink. And then hitting Northern Australia and then coming to Southern Australia. So they're sort of hopping from mudflats.
So they do have to stop. Those ones can't just go continuously.
The big challenge with those smaller birds, and the reason that a lot of those are endangered now, is because of the amount of development going on in East Asia.
Because you only have to mess up one stop and they're screwed.
Yeah, particularly in the South China Sea with China.
Yeah.
And also Korea, to some extent, have been building. If you're going to build, people want to live by the sea for a whole lot of reasons. It's easy to develop by the sea, so what do? You find some mud flats and you just reclaim them, fill them in.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so a lot of these...
Where's that restaurant gone? I was here last year after summer. There was a restaurant right here.
It's not like you've got a choice. If you're starving, you can't go, oh, well, we'll just keep flying on to the next country until we find one.
You're out of fuel.
You're out of fuel.
We'll just keep
you're
going.
Gone. Yeah, you just sit there. So... as an aside, there are some studies being done now in some of the Asian countries where this sort of migratory route is, where they're building large floating islands with the appropriate substrate on them that is going to have enough food in them for these birds to do it. So they don't have to maintain the mud flats. They can create artificial mud flats and just have them floating around in the sea, so the birds can land on those. So
Jesus, that's crazy. Though 12,000 k's, holy moly!
I know, it's a long way.
So my story was:
you had one.
An Australian man says he was able to survive a late night house fire after his pet parrot roused him from bed.
Yeah,
did you see that story?
I did.
So Anton Wynne said, I heard a bang and Eric, my parrot, he started to yell, so I woke up and smelled the smoke. Yeah. So there you go. And it's like I don't know what species it is, but it was a beautiful green. It looked like a king parrot or something.
No, it's not an Australian parrot. I think it's an African or an Indian. It's a pet. I
had no idea you could buy non-native parrots in Australia. I went to the beach the other day and someone had a macaw.
A macaw, yeah.
I was like,
there's a guy in Ocean Grove who has a blue and yellow macaw.
Yeah, it must be him then, because I can't imagine there's many of them. This is a Brazilian bird, guys, for context. This is a rainforest Brazilian bird.
A big honking parrot.
This is huge. It's probably bigger than any Australian parrot. Maybe as big as some of the cockatoos, the black cockatoos. Bigger. I'm at the beach in my car working away, and there's a guy sitting there. I'm like, what the hell's that thing on his shoulder? And it's got like a little vest on it where he's got a leash attached to the front, And its tail's about, half a metre long, 50 centimetres long. And I was just like, holy crap, it turned around and it was a macaw, which I had never seen. I don't think I'd ever seen one in the flesh, in person. I've seen them in David Attenborough
zoos. And bird shows.
Maybe I've seen them there in zoos, but I was astonished. I was like, what? So, and then I looked it up. You can buy them for a measly 5,000 Australian dollars.
Yeah, and you've got to have a high-level license to hold non-native wildlife.
The last story I had, which was a cracker, if I can just find it, and I thought was poetic justice. Do you want to explain what poetic justice is, Dad, before you hear the story?
Poetic justice. Poetic justice is when something goes wrong that ends up being justifiable on the basis of the screw-up in the first place.
You deserved it.
You sort of deserved the response that you got.
So if I said Dad was really clumsy and then I get up and trip over, he'd be like, well, that was poetic justice. Yeah. So wallabies are on the loose in Britain, and we've mapped 95 of them, or 95 sightings. So I thought this was poetic justice for context before we talk about the story, because Australia has so many English or British invasive species.
Yes.
We have the fox, we have rabbits, we have starlings, we have Indian miners, we have a whole bunch of these animals that were brought here after colonisation. Deer, I don't know about stoats. They're in New Zealand.
Yeah, we got a few.
Well, they tried to bring in mongooses.
Mongooses.
I don't know if we pluralise that as mongoose, mongai. And squirrels we had for a long time as well. Red and grey squirrels.
They didn't survive though.
So redneck wallabies have found a home in the temperate climate and agricultural lands in England. I didn't realise they were intentionally released initially during World War II.
Yeah.
In the 40s, what was that, 39 to 45?
Yes.
Because keepers and collectors had other priorities and didn't want to kill them. So they were just like, you're on your own, Skippy. Do you call wallabies Skippy?
I don't know, Skipette.
There's an increased number of these feral animals now. And apparently this population that was released after World War II or during World War II lived up until at least 2009 and then may have gone extinct. But now wild wallaby sightings are popping up all over Britain. And it's like from Scotland all the way down into, near Kent and then over to Wales. They're popping up all over the place. And I just thought it was really funny that it was something I'd never heard about. And so now it's something where they're thinking, oh my God, non-native species has been introduced into England. How is it going to affect the other species here? The native species like rabbits and foxes and, all the plants, and it's the complete inverse here in Australia, where we're shitting ourselves because we have all these birds and foxes and rabbits.
Bloody rabbits.
Competing with the wallabies. So I thought that's why it's poetic justice. Yes. They also have Tamar wallabies, which I didn't realise. Tamar wallabies. Yeah. I'd never actually heard that word, but Tamar. So they're worried that they're competing with grazing animals, and their sheep as well. Are sheep native to Great Britain? Or they've just been there for thousands of years?
Yeah, been there for thousands of years. They might be. Sheep are European. So,
I guess the interesting thing is, though, at least wallabies are soft-footed, so they're not going to damage the land that they're running around on. They'll probably, they don't dig holes. They'll obviously be eating a lot of the plant material, but they don't eat down past or to the roots or past the roots like sheep do. But they pull the plant up.
They're really grass eaters either. Wallabies, they are browsers on shrubs and things, so they might end up doing more damage because of that. Yeah, but they're not going to be competing with sheep who are eating grass.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see that,
unless they've converted over because they can't find any shrubs. Particularly in Scotland, there's no woody plants in Scotland.
It's such a normal thing here. Growing up in Australia, you see, I don't know, I would imagine the average Australian at some point when they're young sees a fox. When they're driving around or with their parents in the car, they see a fox cross the road. Yeah, you see rabbits. You see, sometimes you may see deer if you go to, you go camping or something, you go to the sort of mountainous regions, but you get kind of used to seeing these animals and you just think, oh, that's what, the world's like. But I can't imagine for the life of me driving around Great Britain and seeing a fucking wallaby
exactly.
and being like, what?
And they're unmistakable. That's the thing. It's not like the panther stories that we've always I saw a panther up in the hills out of Melbourne.
Yeah, okay. Smoke another one.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bloody cat. But wallabies, it's a bloody big rabbit. Yeah,
you're not going to get confused.
You might get confused with a hare at night because hares sort of run a bit differently from rabbits. But no, wallabies look like wallabies.
Well, I think a lot of the time my hypothesis for people confusing cats in Australia, besides not being able to differentiate between a house cat that is black and, say, a panther, which most people have probably never seen in the wild, when you're at a distance of hundreds of meters and it's sitting on a fence post or something, and you think, well, it looks bigger than usual, and you get some grainy footage of it. It's like, okay, how much do I trust my ability to discern whether or not this is a panther?
Exactly.
But I had another point besides that. Train of thought just went.
Doesn't matter.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. My hypothesis. My hypothesis is that it is swamp wallabies that are tricking a lot of people into thinking that they see panthers, because swamp wallabies have these really thick tails. Long black tails, and they're dark animals that look like what we see when panthers are running or cheetahs are running, where their tail is out trying to help them balance. Yeah. And so what I think is happening, especially because a lot of these people see these panthers on the road.
You see the rear end of a wallaby disappearing into the bush.
Exactly. And they freak out. Because I've seen that before, and I've gone, holy crap, what was that? It looked like a panther. But, it's a freaking wallaby when you get closer. But yeah, how cool is that? You've got wallabies. Yes. A little bit of home. Next time we go to Scotland or England.
Yeah, I haven't seen one.
In the countryside, we'll be like, this feels like home.
I spend my entire time there trying to find rabbits.
Really? You just don't see them anywhere?
No, see them.
What about badgers? Don't they have lots of badgers?
Yeah, but they're nocturnal. So
what was that TV? What was that cartoon, that TV show that was all about the British countryside that had different animals? There's one that's got a frog. Remember him, Mr. Toad or whatever?
Oh, there was a cartoon. Well, there was a cartoon film made of the book. It was Wind in the Willows.
Wind in the Willows is one, and there's another one that had all of the animals. But yeah, it was really funny because you never hear about people in Great Britain talking or, showing footage of badgers, black and white badgers. They hate them.
Yeah.
Why, they're just unpleasant animals.
Well, they're just unpleasant animals.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
Beautiful, but they're
related to Wolverines, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they're carnivores.
Yeah.
Same family as...
Anyway.
Yes.
Well, awesome. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Alrighty, you mob. Thank you so much for listening to or watching this episode of The Goss. If you would like to watch the video, if you're currently listening to it and not watching it, you can do so on the Aussie English TV channel on YouTube. This is different from the main channel. You'll be able to subscribe to that. Just search Aussie English TV on YouTube. And if you're watching this and not listening to it, you can check this episode out also on the Aussie English podcast, which you can find via my free Aussie English podcast application on both Android and iPhone. You can download that for free, or you can find it via any other good podcast app that you've got on your phone. Spotify, podcasts from iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it is. I'm your host, Pete. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a ripper of a day, and I will see you next time. Peace.